Hello class, my name is Mike Nolan and this is my multimedia discussion board for week 5. In this presentation I'm going to provide you with a brief introduction as to why ethics are important for my organization, and I'm going to be providing the employees with a brief theoretical foundation on which ethical practices will be based. In addition to that, I'm going to provide employees with an overview of why a code of ethics is important for our agency. And lastly, I'm going to provide an ethical scenario and give some brief discussion on how to address this scenario. Now, as law enforcement officers, we know that ethics are extremely important to our organization, as law enforcement officers must conduct themselves both on and off duty in a manner that reflects the highest ethical standards that are consistent with not only their own values, but the values that are established throughout the mission of their department and their agency, and the community that it serves as well. So why is ethics important? Among the many reasons is because of the amount of discretion, power, and public service that law enforcement officers are responsible for. Discretion in law enforcement is necessary to efficiently manage call loads and mediate minor incidences. Law enforcement personnel have enormous discretionary power throughout every rank in law enforcement. It doesn't just start at the top and end at the bottom. Discretion in law enforcement includes who we're going to arrest, whom we're going to investigate, and whom we're going to talk to. And more importantly, these decisions have the power to deprive people of their freedom. It's critical that we understand and possess moral character so that this enormous amount of discretion that we have is balanced and fair. Now, ethics and power is associated because with that discretion, there's a lot of power that comes with that. Because law enforcement officers exercise so much discretion, they also have a great deal of power. They have the power to arrest, detain, search, seizure, and question. The government and our communities grant us this power so that we can enforce the laws and maintain peace and harmony within our community. We live in a country where due process protects civilians from the abuse of government, in which certain freedoms are expected. Thus, we need to expect ourselves as law enforcement officers to use discretion with due process in mind and in the benefit of our community and not in the benefit of our own interests. And lastly, ethics is important to public service. Our communities employ law enforcement officers to carry out state mandates and municipal ordinances, essentially keeping the law and keeping everyone safe and at peace. This trust that the community has placed in law enforcement and other public officials is to carry out this duty in a responsible fashion, which we refer to as public trust. Public trust ensures that those of us who are tasked with these duties will not abuse this power. Public trust also ensures that public officials will be held to a higher standard than those who they serve. And lastly, when applying ethics to our duty of public service, we need to ensure that we're walking the walk, that we're not do as I say, not as I do, that we're actually walking the walk and that we're able to abide by the same laws that our community expects us to enforce and impose upon others. Now, in applying ethics to a moral theory or an ethical theory in which it can be based, I think there's several that can apply. One of those, in part, is utilitarianism, which is a moral theory that focuses on the greatest good for the greatest number. The results or the focus in that and intentions are irrelevant in utilitarianism. Essentially, the actions are right if they benefit the majority, and that's why we vote on certain laws that we say, this is a society we frown upon and we don't want this, and this is a society we're okay with. While I think the theory of utilitarianism is a relevant theory and it applies to ethics and law enforcement, I feel that it maybe doesn't apply as strongly as contractarianism. Uh, Contractarianism, as articulated by Thomas Hobbes, is the key to, he argues that the key to saving the world is an actual contract. So it's a social contract that we're engaging with in one another, um, and then morality. He argues that morality is not primitive, as you see the caveman there. While some of us may be born with certain or raised up through certain moral codes or ethics within our family, not everyone adheres to the same morality-based issues. Um, and lastly, that it's a shared agreement with our community. We agree that if we break these rules, these are the consequences, and if we follow the rules, then we will be free from those consequences or infringement upon our civil liberties. Now, in applying an ethical scenario unique to our organization, I think it's important to recognize that we all know the big ones, the use of force or the activities that when you're engaging it, you know that without a doubt there's a violation of some ethical conduct that's taking place there. But specific to our organization, if we were to adhere to the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics, keep in mind that the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics was adopted in 1957 by the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Um, in that Law Enforcement Code of Ethics, it states in part that I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as public trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of police service. I will never engage in an act of corruption or bribery, nor will I condone such acts by other police officers. Lastly, this is what I want to touch on here, is I will cooperate with all legally authorized agencies and their representatives in the pursuit of justice. So when you're applying ethics and you're looking at now where you have a lot of cities and municipalities that are becoming sanctuary cities, it's important to analyze, how am I going to handle this situation? I have my organization or my city saying, hey, we are not going to cooperate with ICE or deportation procedures. However, my agency also adheres to the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics that says that because we adhere to these ethical standards, we will cooperate with all agencies. So I think it's important that you think and apply these ethics when you're making decisions associated with that. Well, thank you all for watching this brief introduction into the ethics training.